Oftentimes in our lives, when we want to step out and take a stance for Jesus, it just feels uncomfortable, doesn't it? You just feel like it's getting awkward. The situation's just strange and weird, and you start to clam up, and even though you have something you feel like you should say, it's really in your heart, you don't really say it. Maybe you're afraid to say it because it's an uncomfortable position. Maybe you're at work, or maybe you're amongst family or friends, and it's just, it's going to be awkward that time, but it's also going to be awkward the next time you see them people, the next time you're in that situation, the next time, and then the next time. There's always going to be that little thing in between you and that person that is just a bit awkward, right? You feel like you might change your dynamic, your coworker dynamic, your relationship with a family member dynamic, all that stuff. You might feel like it just changes things if I step out and say this thing. And sometimes, by the way, it can change it for good. But you feel like it's just hard when you're in the situations out in the world. It's not hard when you're at church, or when you're in a small group setting, or amongst all Christians, because those are the places you're supposed to be able to say, right, that's where Christianity belongs, is in those four walls, or in those quiet, settings where everybody believes the same thing. It doesn't. There's some lot of sarcasm there, in case you weren't aware, but that's how the world wants to make you feel, right? That's where you belong. You shouldn't say these things out here in public, even though it's becoming a little bit more popular to say these things out in public, and at least maybe a little more accepted to be able to speak your faith and say it out loud. There's still that time where it's uncomfortable, and you really put yourself out there. The Apostle Peter, by the way, in Acts chapter 2, really put himself out there. Actually, all 12 of the apostles did at the time. It was on the day of Pentecost, and a bunch of, the Holy Spirit was given. Everybody speaking in tongues. There's people from all different nationalities that were understanding what was being said, even though they didn't speak the language. So the Holy Spirit really showed up right there, right? And Peter got in front of everybody from tons of different countries and nationalities and presented the gospel. And in case you're not aware, that was that time where they could kill you. All right, it's just a few chapters down the road there where it's talking about Paul, who was Saul of Tarsus, right? He was killing people. He was there assisting in the persecution and the stoning and the murdering of Christians before he became Paul, right? But Peter put himself in a heck of a spot, standing in front of everybody and proclaiming the gospel and saying, hey, Jesus of Nazareth, whom you guys killed, you guys handing him over to be crucified, he was the Son of God. This is what he did. This is what you did. This is what you can do to rectify that situation, right? It's a long process. I'm not going to read you all 28 verses, so we're just going to talk about Acts chapter 2. That's exactly what happened, okay? But he really put himself out there. They could have went and killed him right then. They could have took his life right there. There was no issue there. I promise you, there was people in the audience that day who were zealots, we'll say, for their cause, right? And for their way of life. And the Holy Spirit showed up, and it didn't matter, right? And that's exactly what can happen today. You may not believe it. You may not understand it. But when you put yourself out there and you make yourself vulnerable for Jesus, you allow the Holy Spirit to use you and put you in an uncomfortable spot and be vulnerable, you become weak in your flesh. That's when Jesus is strong. That's when God is at his strongest. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, he said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. So when you're weak and all you can rely on is Jesus, the only thing you can rely on is that Holy Spirit inside of you to tell you what to say, to protect you, to give you strength, to give you the words, to everything, to intercede in that situation. That's when the power of God is released the most. You might be weak, and your faith might feel weak, but you're growing. You're getting stronger. Your relationship with Jesus is getting stronger. Your faith is getting stronger. You're growing up. And that is when you are strengthened by the Holy Spirit and in Jesus. There's just no other way to put it. We want to retreat back from these situations because it's a little terrifying. It's a little uncomfortable. We don't know. We're afraid that we're going to look like a fool. Plain and simple. We're afraid that we're going to stumble across our words. We're afraid that we're going to lose our job. We're afraid that we're going to lose a friend. We're afraid of the awkwardness at Thanksgiving, right? Because it can be. It's understandable, but we've got to put ourselves out there so we can put Jesus up there. We can glorify God by lowering ourselves, right? What John the Baptist said, that he must become greater, I must become less. I will look like a fool for Jesus. You can think I'm an idiot. That's fine. As long as I'm exalting Jesus, it's all going to be okay. That's the approach we need to take. Right? I'm okay if you think I'm a moron. It's just real. We don't like that. We don't want to be called unintelligent, uneducated. That's which, by the way, these uneducated people, that's what the media wants to say. That's what the world wants to say, is that they're uneducated. These conservative Christians, evangelicals, are uneducated. Well, maybe I didn't go to college. That's just fine. I'm okay with that, because I follow Jesus. I know the one who is smarter than you could ever comprehend. I have a relationship with the one whose wisdom is beyond your comprehension. Even in God's most unwise times, which, by the way, there's not, he's still smarter than you. Okay, if that makes sense. Like, everything about God is smarter than you can ever imagine. It's all wise. It's all beyond your comprehension. And if you follow that guy, if you were consumed by the Holy Spirit, Jesus is living inside of you. The Holy Spirit's inside of you. He's part of the Holy Trinity, right? So that means you have that inside of you. You have the capabilities to at least operate with godly wisdom. And godly wisdom is amazing, right? But you don't operate in that if you're afraid to put yourself out there. If you're afraid of these uncomfortable situations, because you will never grow. You got to be made vulnerable. You have to expose your heart and all your weakness and all your flesh. Just expose it and allow yourself to be ridiculed, for Jesus. So let's do that today. Let's become vulnerable. Let's get in uncomfortable positions, and let's become comfortable with uncomfortability. That makes sense? We got to become comfortable in these uncomfortable moments and in these vulnerable moments to allow God's power to work inside of us. And that's when lives change. That's when communities change. That's when people change. Is when we allow God to work inside of our lives and put him in the situation where he can work in somebody else's life. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. My name is Jason, Art of Creation Homestead. We love y'all. God bless you. Goodbye.